Hello again, I'm John, and welcome back to our conversations about thriving after a stroke. Today, I wanted to talk to you about therapy. Of course, the word therapy comes from Greek, and it simply means healing. Or so a therapist, any kind of therapy you undergo is aimed at administering to you some healing care. And I would say one of the things I have known over the last year is an incredible array of people who do very cumbersome and distasteful tasks in medical care, and I've received great help from them. But I hold at the very top of my list my therapist, my occupational therapist, my physical therapist, my speech therapist, and now I have an actual psychotherapist, the regular kind of therapist that you think of all the time when you hear that word. So today I want to differentiate between the different kinds of therapies I'm receiving, and there are more besides, but I want to talk about the ones that I am currently doing. I go to a physical therapist twice a week. I go on Tuesday and Thursday, and they are concerned mainly with my mobility, my ability to transfer myself, and my ability to walk. And hopefully one day, I've told my therapist, one of my goals is that I be able to run. I asked my therapist last week, I said, do you think I'll be able to run by the end of the year? And he said, I don't think so. And what I realized from that is be careful of your goals, because goals are, if you think about it, a finish line. You pass it in an instant and it's gone. So what do you do after you've met your goal? I would rather say that just getting to run again, I want to be able to undergo a discipline and a process that helps me gain more of my mobility. And so it's more important that I involved in a regular process of improving my mobility than that I reach some arbitrary goal. Reaching a goal can be somewhat, you can have a real letdown after you reach your goal. And so I don't just have a goal. Every day I do exercises, and after my meditation, I do planks, and I do sit-ups, and I do stretches, and I'm trying to be able to move better. And that is what my physical therapist is overseeing. In addition to my physical therapist, I have an occupational therapist, and my occupational therapist is not trying to get me capable of going back to work. Occupation are the daily tasks, are the daily things that you need to be able to do to live on your own. That is, you need to be able to transfer yourself. You need to be able to feed yourself. You need to be able to toilet yourself. You need to be able to shower and clean yourself. And so the occupational therapist kind of focuses on those daily occupations that we all have. And so for me, the occupational therapist is focused on the use of the hand. Let me tell you, your hand is a very, very intricate limb, and the ability to have that fine motor control is very, very complicated, and it takes a tremendous number of neurons in your brain to control this little hand. And so while the physical therapist focuses on your gross motor abilities, an occupational therapist focuses on fine motor abilities. And so I string beads and I move things and I reach for things and touch things in order to gain more regular use of my hand. There's nothing wrong with my hand. My hand functions just fine. The problem is my brain. It doesn't do what I tell it to do. And it doesn't do what I tell it to do. So there's where the problem lies. But the more I don't use this hand, if you can notice, this finger is curled, and people with strokes or brain injuries often cradle this hand because if they don't get adequate information from the brain, it just won't work. And what happens is you lose the ability to extend those digits completely. And so every day I do some stretching out of my fingers, but the occupational therapist works with your hands. The additional therapist that I'm working with every week, twice a week, is a speech therapist. And I'm sure that you think about the speech therapist in terms of communication skills, but speech therapists also are in charge. I have a very serious swallowing problem, and most people who've had strokes do, but one side of my throat actually doesn't work, and those muscles and even my tongue does not work properly, and so I have to do a lot of exercises. When I got my evaluation, when I first went to the speech therapist, she said to me, "Your voice is harsh and it is strained." And I said, "Could you give me some tips to do better?" She doesn't realize that only 2 months ago, I could not make any sound at all beyond a whisper. But I realized I had this problem of my voice being too harsh and too strained. And she said, "Well, don't strain." And I was like, "Okay, thank you. I'll try not to strain." But what she meant was, because I could only whisper, I couldn't get enough breath support to make a sound with my vocal cords. I got into the habit of pushing very hard. And so I tend to push air out too hard. And she was trying to say, take your foot off the gas a little bit. Don't push so hard, and that will mean you don't strain it as much. So one of my exercises is I blow through a straw. You know, you can only get so much air through a straw. And so I blow through a straw and hum at the same time. And what I'm doing is learning how to make a sound without pushing so hard and pushing so much air. So that is kind of my occupation. I want to say again how thankful I am. I have one job. And, you know, people will come back to me and say, "John, you only had one job." And my one job is to get better. And that is because my wife has given me that privilege by her work with the Texas State Firefighters Association. And I want to be sure I say how thankful I am for that. But I also want to suggest to you, one of the things I think about therapy, they're one of the few places where it is asked, it is probably required that we join hands with our medical professional. And therapy, you have to do exercises. So the medical personnel do their part, and we do our part by exercising and doing the exercises we're asked to do. And I think it is a splendid example of how we would all be healthier if we didn't leave our health and well-being up to somebody else. And we basically had the attitude, I can run it into the ground and they'll fix it. With your physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy, you actually have exercises you do at home. You won't believe this, but my physical therapist, one of my exercises, I have a cone, like an orange cone, and I step on it with one foot, and then I step down, and then I touch it with the other foot, and I can't knock the cone over. And it is one of the darn hardest things I have to do, because I have to exercise all of my weight on my weak side, and I have to control the spasticity in my weaker foot and just touch the cone and not knock it down. And so I have to do my exercises between times that I go to the gym. And I have exercises for my occupational therapy, and I have exercises I do for my speech therapy. I am getting a lot from all of them. And let me tell you, I live for my therapy. I love it. And I want to be the most coachable and the most enthusiastic learner, patient that they have. And I'm going to try to do my part. And I'm trying to get myself back in the saddle and get myself going. So I hope this is some encouragement to you. I look forward to talking with you on a couple more videos about stroke recovery. Thank you, and see you next week.